Where I left you off in part 2, I asked you to complete 2 rounds and meet me back here once you're done. Alright, I have my front post done. Yep. I want to do my back post, which was started the round before. And then I want to do a front post on the new stitch there, the new double crochet, which was part of the 3 double crochets from the corner. Yeah. And in that corner we're doing 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and then of course you place your stitch marker there. Really important for this part to make sure your stitch markers are placed in your second stitch, because that will show us where to attach later. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we're doing 1 double crochet, another one there, 3 double crochets in the corner, stitch marker on your second one. All right, so you can probably tell here where you've ended up, because you've got your front post, the chain 3 acts as your back post, then you've got a front, then you've got a back, and then you've got a front. So do a front post on that 3rd double crochet from the previous round, and then you do your back post on the back post from the 3rd double crochet of the round before it, and then you do your front post like normal. Yeah, and then you slip stitch in that tight stitch, really tight stitch, like so. Remove your stitch marker, cast off here, so chain 1 and pull up a loop. We're going to cast off, all right, like so. All right, so there you go. And we're going to weave that tail in later. But before we do, we are going to close our work. This is all sizes, by the way, because I married it up so each size would be the right size by the time they did this round, these rounds. And let me grab the measuring tape. So remember how I said in part 1 that your border rounds will be 3 inches bigger than what you need. So the first part of the border round is there, going right up to the opposite side and marrying that up to there. So it's exactly 3 inches altogether that your border round is, okay, from your piece. Now, I don't know what I've done here. Let's try this. That's not working. Here we go, that's better. And it's the same for this section here. Your border rounds should be, I've got it turned the wrong way around, 3 inches. So there's the 3 centimetres, 3.5 centimetres for that side, adding your 3.5 on that side. It's probably a little bit less than 3 inches. It's more like 7 centimetres here and not 7.5. So it's kind of that little tiny bit less. I should have got you to check first. So if you wanted to do an extra round, you could have, but I wouldn't suggest it, because we're going to be doing that after we put it together now anyways. For a 0.5 centimetre, which is very, very minimal, that's not going to make too much of a difference, because your top is known to stretch and crochet does that. All right, so what we're going to do is, remember that little tail, those 2 tails that we had there? We're not weaving those, about 3 now because of this one, but the 2 tails we had there, we're not weaving that end in yet. Now, if you've weaved yours in, this is what I want you to do. This is where we just pulled the thread through, yeah? Flip your work to the wrong side, all right, and that's where your tails are, there, all right? So what you want to do is just pass one corner halfway, roughly until you find the other corner, pass the other corner, the other halfway, and what you're going to do, and this is why I asked you to make sure your stitch markers stayed in your second piece, we are going to join our front part, half of the ribbing up. So the full ribbing is about there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So we'll do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So maybe start from your 1, 2, and 3. So you start from your 3 and you go 1, 2, 3, and your stitch marker 4. And we'll talk about that in a moment. All right. So that's what we're going to do. In fact, what we could do, if you like, is pop a stitch marker. There's your first one. So you go back 1, 2, and 3. We'll pop it on the 3rd one. All right. There. And do the same for the opposite side. Just stretch over and grab that stitch marker. And so you do the same for the opposite side. So you see there's your stitch marker. So it's 1, 2, and 3. All right. So now what you want to do is grab some thread and start sewing from those 2 stitch markers to those 2. And we'll do that right now. All right, so we're going to grab some thread like so. You don't need much, just need a small amount. And then you're going to, you're going to sew that in, weave that in as well. So don't stress too much. But what we're going to do simply is this. Thread your needle, gorgeous. Leave yourself, I don't know, not even in frame, hello. Leave yourself about, I don't know, that much thread. 1, 2, 3, that sort of thing. And even that's too much. Look how much I've got. It's way too much. All right. So what you want to do is straight from here. And we're going to work from the top of the stitch. So let's start here. And you're going to pop your needle in the top stitch right there. And I've split the yarn, so I'm going to go into the stitch properly. I'm going to remove that stitch marker just for a minute. It's just difficult for me to see. There you go. And go into the top stitch of the other stitch marker stitch right there. Just going to remove it for a minute. And don't pull it all the way through. Just pull some of it through and leave yourself, I don't know, a hand and a half worth of tail so you can weave that in later. All right. So then you're going to do the same with the other stitches. You're on this side, you're going to go through the top stitch on this side. Yeah. And the top stitch on the other side, we'll pull it closed later, and a top stitch on the other side like so. Then you're going to do the same with the last stitch right there on that side, the last stitch right there on that side, and then you're going to do a whole stitch of your stitch marker stitch on one side and the whole stitch of the stitch marker stitch on that side. All right, so you're in your top loops for the rest of the work, but you are in your whole stitch for that part. Now, if you were to give that a tug, it closes everything up. So there you go. Now we're going to fix this part later, so don't stress too much about it. Leave it there. But this one here, what we're going to do is go through the top of the stitch on the opposite side and under the stitch on that side like so. And what that will do is it will really tighten up that section. You can remove the stitch markers if you like, but I'm going to leave them there. Then you want to grab your needle, and I'll show you a close-up of this part, and all you want to do is go down into the base of that stitch, right into, it's just into the center if you like, and pull it shut. And you're going to weave that end in, but not yet. Let's just take this thread undone. All right, for a minute, take this thread out because we want to rethread this one here. All right, just for a second. And you're like that there. That's way too loose. So you're going to go over to this side and straight down into the stitch and pull that shut too. So you're going to weave that end in on the inside as well. So flip your work like so and just find some stitches anywhere. Am I in frame? There we are. Just split some of those stitches like that, just the base of the stitches there and the base of the stitches on that side. It's a little awkward, this bit. I'm just doing that again, I'm splitting some stitches there. But the reason is to close it so that it doesn't open up at all. Once you've done that, you just want to weave this thread in through those threads. I'm just splitting some stitches. You can check the front if you want. I'm not going to bother because it all looks the same with this colouring, so it's great. That's the joy of having hand-dyed yarn, is different colour patches everywhere, so it works well. So you weave that in 3 times, you give it a cut, you're done with that guy, right? The other one we're going to leave because we're going to crochet over that with our border round, and then we're going to weave that end in. All right, so let's leave that end. Bring this out one more time. And your first armhole is actually done. All right, so then you want to go over to the other side and you want to do exactly the same for the other side. All right, you're going to take your stitch markers, you're going to pop them in your 3. I'll get you started and you're going to do the rest off air, and then we're going to meet back and continue. So you go 1, 2, 3. Same on this side. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So what you have is that. So your job now is to do that end the same way you did that side. Meet me back here once you're done, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next, but also weave in the other 2 tails that were on the inside there, those 2 tails that we first started with. Don't weave this top tail or the top tail in this side. We're going to weave that in under the border round when we do our border round. All right, so head off on your own, do this section there, weave your ends in, meet me back here once you're done, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, so right now you should have both your underarms stitched together. What I want you to do is go back to that, see that thread, let's get a close up for you. See that thread that we cast off before? That's where we want to start. You want to grab your hook and your thread because you have not finished your piece. All right, what we want to do is start again. Now that's where we ended off, just ignore that for now. Go to your center area and not the stitch with your stitch marker, but the one just before it. So you've got your 2 stitch markers in your left hand and your crochet hook in your right hand. Grab your new thread and pop it over your hook. Pull the loop through and pass the tail forward. Just going to lock it into place with a chain or 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to crochet over my tail. You know what? Maybe I won't. I'll leave it at the back because I want you to see what I'm doing here. The center that we stitched together, you're going to ignore that completely. For this part, you're going to do a double crochet 2 together, these first 2 right here. And that's it, all right? So the stitch marker stitch is where you're going to do your double crochet 2 together. And I'm going to take the first stitch marker out so you can see what I'm doing. You start your double crochet in the stitch of your first stitch marker, like so. You got your 3 loops, then yarn over, pull through 2. I'm just going to move this at the back so you can see what I'm doing. That's better. All right. Then you're going to pop your yarn over your hook, ignoring our stitch or our seam line and jumping into the other stitch with your stitch marker. Remove it. Pull the loop through and you should have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over and pull through just 2. All right. You should have 3 left. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So that's actually brought both those sections together and turned them into 1 stitch. All right. So your next job is to pop a double crochet into your next stitch. Okay. Now remember before you had your front, back, front. So your next stitch is whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to pop in a, what was that front? I'm going to pop in a back post right there. All right, so my first 2 stitches are just normal double crochets. All right, then I'm going to go back to my pattern. Oh, front post, back post, double crochet all the way across my piece until I get to the next corner. And right here where the tail is, pop it at the back. And you're going to do your front post. Everyone should be there at the front post. Yeah. And then your chain 3. Remember your chain 3 I said is going to act as a back post. We're going to use it as a back post here. And then you're going into your front post and back post all the way across until you get to, I've split the yarn again. I'm doing well with splitting the yarn today. I really am. There we go. Until you get to, and I'll show you. Okay, until you get to your very next armhole. So what you've done here is simply closed off your armhole edge. How gorgeous does that look? It looks like you hadn't changed anything, right? Remember, we started with 2 double crochets. So at the end, we're going to end with 1, and the chain 3 will act as your second double crochet. Don't worry about that. We're going to deal with that later, all right? All I want you to do is front post, back post, all the way, get to 1, 2, let's pop a stitch marker in there. Where is it? 1, 2, and 3. Just get to your third last stitch there, all right? Front post, back post, all the way there. Meet me there once you're done, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, I have done my double crochet front post, back post all the way through until I got to my stitch marker. I'm going to remove the stitch marker. Let's get a close up, like so. Move it out the way so it doesn't blur. All right, we've got a front post or whatever you've got there, doesn't matter. Yeah. Now, before we did the 2 together here, and then 1 double crochet, and then we did our normal front post, back post. I have a back post here, which I'm going to do. Yours could be different. Don't worry about it if yours is different. Oh, I've split my yarn. Let's take that undone, shall we? The whole thing here. Just talk amongst yourselves, guys. Front post and back post right there. And if you're not sure what I've done, we're going to do those 2 together and a double crochet there. So I need to do a front post here. Yours might be a back post. That's all right. Doesn't matter if we don't add up the same. That's normal. Okay, especially since I've messed up mine, and we'll talk about that later. All right, so now what we want to do is I want to pop a double crochet in that stitch there, just 1. And then I want to put these 2 double crochets together like we did before. So pop your hook into the stitch with your first stitch marker, pull a loop through like normal, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, hold it there on those 2 loops. Yarn over your hook, just remove that stitch marker first. So yarn over your hook, jump straight into the next stitch with your stitch marker, pull a loop through, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 2. Remove that stitch marker. And complete your double crochet. Now I forgot to mention, and we're going to do that, I'm going to pop a stitch marker in this stitch and just do a double crochet into your next stitch like that. Hold it there. I forgot to mention to do that on the opposite side. So go over here and you've got your stitch marker in your chain 3. But I also want you to pop a stitch marker into the stitch that you did your 2 together. So right next to your chain 3, if you will. All right, so leave that there. And while you're here, we did our 2 together there, and we've done a double crochet here. Now, once again, just count back. That's my front, that's my back, front. I need to do a back right here. Again, yours might be different. So whatever yours is, do yours, yeah? And do your normal front post and back post into every stitch across. All right, super easy. You know this part. You've been doing it from all the rounds that you have made so far. And there you go. I don't think I need to show you this part, but I will do that last back post right there. And this yarn has been splitting for me. All the other yarns, the skeins were okay except this one. Go figure. I did play with it. I have to admit. All right. So that's what I want you to do. Front post, back post, all the way until you get to, once again, you've got one there, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Actually, just get to the last front post or back post before your chain 3. And we'll talk about it once we get there, all right? So front post, back post, all the way until you get to your stitch marker there. Meet me there once you're done, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this side. And I haven't finished a lot there. Excuse me. All right, so I have a front post to do there. All right, now here we have our first double crochet that we did our join 2 together, and our chain 3 will act as our second double crochet. So you're doing your front post or your back post on this next stitch, and mine will be a back post, like so. And then I will slip stitch to join into the stitch with the stitch marker, like so. And that classifies as my first double crochet before the center. Okay, so you're chaining 1, 2, and 3, like so. And in this round, all you're doing is placing a double crochet into that first stitch with your stitch marker. And you can, in fact, it's probably a good idea, place your stitch marker in there as well, to remind you that you have 1 more double crochet into the next stitch. So these 3 double crochets will always be there throughout your piece. It's so that it doesn't get bulky under your arm as much, all right? So now we are doing our next, whatever it is yours is, mine's a back post and front post all the way until we get to our next stitch marker stitch, all right, which is, and I'll show you in a minute, the other side. Oh, hello. The other side. But what I want you to do on the other side is the same thing. Let's have a look here. Pop a stitch marker in the stitch before it and a stitch marker in the stitch after it. All right, I'm not going to let you watch me do this. What I want you to do now is simply that. Front post, back post, all the way here. In your 3 stitch markers, you're placing 1 double crochet, 2, and 3. And then you're doing your front post, back post, all the way until you get to your stitch marker here. All right, before we continue, let's pop a stitch marker in that next stitch, right there. So there's your 3 there, and there's your 3 on this side. So when you get to 3 stitch markers there and 3 stitch markers here, they need to be double crochets, all right? So front post, back post, get to this stitch marker, do 3 double crochets across, 1 in each stitch, and then front post, back post, all the way until you get to your stitch markers here. All right, so I want you to complete this round, meet me here, and then we will talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the round. Now I'm not sure if I asked you to keep your stitch markers in, but keep your stitch markers in anyway. What we have here, and this is right at the end of the round, I'm just going to move this out the way so it doesn't blur for you. All right, so I got to my very last front post. Now remember, these double crochets are 1, 2, and 3. Now it's up to you what you have. I have a back post right there. Yours might be front post. Finish off your section there, and you now have your 1, 2, and 3. But your first one, you're going to leave as is, and you're going to slip stitch into the tight stitch like so. Oh, very tight stitch. Slip stitch like so. Stitch marker there for a moment. 1, 2, and 3. Pop your stitch marker in there. We're going to have some instructions in a minute, but first let's do these 2 double crochets, and they are normal, just a double crochet. Yeah, remove that stitch marker and replace it. Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned to replace them before, but never mind. Do the next one and replace it. And I'll show you the other side if you've taken yours out and not replaced them. Okay. Oops. There we go. And then you start your post. Now that stitch belongs there. Be careful not to put it there. Mine is a back post. Not really sure what yours is, but mine is a back. Whatever yours is, yours might be a front. Do your post like normal, jump into your next one and continue in the round. what they're saying. Again, I've just pulled the thread, so we'll leave that. I'll fix that thread up in a minute. But yes, continuing in the round, let me talk to you about some instructions now. All right. First, let's go back to this section here, and your very last post would be there, and then you've got your 3 double crochets. All right, so pop in your stitch markers in those. Let's not do it that way. That just blocked the lighting there, didn't it? Pop in your 3 double crochets like that. And you can see them. They look different to the rest. All right, so pop your stitch markers in there because you're going to do some more rounds. Now, that depends on you now. All right, so what you have now simply is that you have a choice now. You can leave this length if you like. So take those few stitches undone, slip stitch to join and weave in your tail if you like. Or you can do what I'm going to do now and make another 3 more rounds. And then meet me back here at that time and we're going to work on lengthening those sleeves a little bit, yeah? Find them a little too short, and the other reason for lengthening is we can close them up here a bit like your underarm there. We can close this part here and up and just make those sleeves that little tiny bit longer. Not a lot longer, but a little bit longer, all right? So I've allowed for that in the pattern on purpose, but I only allowed for two rounds of each sleeve, but I think the yarn will still make those extra rounds if you wanted to make yours longer. All right, and even if you wanted to make yours longer here, I've allowed a lot of yarn extra for you on purpose. All right, so I think now your job is to decide what you want to do. If you want to cast off here and just do the sleeves, then join us at this time right now where we will be doing our sleeves then. Otherwise, continue in your 3 rounds and meet me back here at that time, and then we will start working on our sleeves. All right, head off and do that now, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of our final round of the base. So I'm just going to, let's move all this out the way so you can see, that's better. Just finish off my round. Now, this is entirely up to you. If you wanted to do another round, by all means you can, another 2 rounds, whatever suits you, yeah? But I think I'm done. All right, so what I'm going to do, if I can get it, slip stitch. You know what, we don't need these other stitch markers now. If you're finished, you can remove all the other stitch markers. It just confuses me. Here we go. And then just slip stitch into the stitch with your stitch marker, remove it, chain 1 or pull up a loop, give your work a cut and a tug, grab your sewing needle real quick. All right, and then let's bring that up a little again. All right, so you are here to hide that knot completely. All you're doing is going through the back stitch. It's not even the back, that's the back loop of the stitch, but there's like a little, sort of like a post, if you will, around the back post of a stitch, and all you're doing is pulling that loop down and your tail disappears. All right, and then you just weave it in anywhere you please. Once you've finished, you could do 3, 4, doesn't matter. Just give your work a cut. And your job now is to weave those 2 ends in and that one in. You can do that yourself. Now, just to let you know, I have already, whoops, let's try that again, already done a few rounds of one of the sleeves. So what I want you to do simply is this. Find your sleeve. Oh, I got it the wrong way anyway. Grab your sleeve, yep. And this is the top of your sleeve, and that's the armhole area. Yep. And what you need to do is find your stitch just before the seam. So right there, that's a really loose stitch. I'm going to pop it in the 2 loops, if I can get it in without splitting it. There. Grab your thread and reattach. That's your seam line right there that we sewed up together. This is a stitch before the seam line. So pop your yarn over your hook and just grab that little tail and bring it forward for a minute just to lock it into place. Chain 1, 2 and 3. Pop your stitch marker in there. Any stitch marker will do. Alright, now what you need to do is pass that tail at the back, just so you can see what you're doing. You're going to weave that in later anyway. There's your seam line right there. You're not going to do your two together or your sleeve will be too tight. All you're going to do here is yarn over your hook, and you see that stitch. The very first stitch you see, pop your hook into the stitch. It's the actual stitch, and just do it 1 double crochet. Just 1. And don't do that too loose. Then you're going to start your front post and back post and find the stitch that's nearest to you. That stitch is for that back post. So you're going to go into the front post or back, depending on what you are on, and do your post like normal. Now remember, later at the end of the round, you will have 1 double crochet there and 1 double crochet there. You don't need a third one here. We'll talk about that when we get there. All right, but in the meantime, you're just doing your front post and back posts and front posts all the way across your armhole. It's very simple. You've been doing it with the base. You know what you're doing. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about it. I'm going to let you do it yourself. Front post, back post, all the way around. Get to, I don't know, 2 stitches earlier. Wait for me there, and then we will talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the round. Let's just bring this up a little. Oh, probably too much there, but that's alright. No, it's too much. You won't be able to see if it's that close. Alright, I do have, I have a front post before the next stitch. So that front post belongs to that stitch. So I need to do my front post, like so. And then my chains are in there, yeah, and then we're slip stitching. Oh, very tight slip stitch. Oh, you might need to remove your stitch mark if you're anything like me. It's a very tight stitch. Okay, and there we go. Tight, tight, tight stitch. Oh, splitting the yarn, doing all sorts of weird things, but there you go. So now we're going to chain 1, 2 and 3. Notice I tightened that up a little. And you're going to do 1 more round. All right, so you need to place a double crochet in the next double crochet only, just 1. And then you need to start your front posts and back posts. Whatever you started with before, you need to start with that again, and then continue in the round. All right, it's super duper easy. You know what you're doing, yeah? All right. Your job now is to complete this round, meet me back here and get ready to finalise our shrug. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this round. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Oh, let's get a nice close-up for you. Oh, I'm not at the end yet. I've got a back post. She's a bit slow, guys. And a front post. And then it's slip stitch to join, chain 1, pull up that loop, give your work a cut, and you are done with that sleeve. Simply gorgeous. Alrighty guys, so there you have it. You have completed 1 sleeve. Don't forget to weave in those ends. You know how to do that. You don't need me to show you. And then hop over to the other sleeve and repeat the process exactly the same. You cannot go wrong. Don't forget guys, if you did want to do more rounds at the base, you could have done more rounds. Even now, if you try it on and you realize it might be too short for you and you've got plenty of yarn left, reattach at the armhole and you can complete more rounds if you like. But I wouldn't, you know, that's why we call it the rectangle Bolero Shrug, to let you know that it's not supposed to be a large shrug, it's supposed to be a small little bolero look, And there you go. Once again, a very special thank you to the lovely Raylene for her colour combination in today's tutorial. Don't forget, guys, if you want to choose the colour of the very next tutorial, join us on our live at 10 a.m. Saturday mornings, Melbourne, Australia time, where one lucky subscriber gets to choose the colour combination of our next tutorial. It's way too exciting. Thank you very much for creating the gorgeous rectangle Bolero Shrug with me. I'll see you all very soon. My name is Mary and this is Wow Crochet Designs. Ciao for now.